Hey guys, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. Now, you may have been wondering why I didn't post a March wrap-up, and that is because I forgot. And April was really a crazy month for me and time just slipped away. I was traveling and fell off the wagon of being on top of my wrap-up schedule, but you know what? Books are timeless. It doesn't matter that I read them in March. I can still talk about them even though it's like almost May or May. You know, these things happen, but I did read a lot of incredible books in March and I can't wait to share my thoughts on them, so let's just dive right in. So first up is Gathering Darkness by Morgan Rhodes. This is the third book in the Fallen Kingdom series, and if you've been watching any of my wrap-ups or vlogs, you know that I have been reading this series non-stop on audio. Listening to the audiobooks are actually fantastic. And this is the first YA fantasy series that I have read on audio, and it's a really fun and cool experience. Definitely a little bit different than reading a contemporary on audio, but I've really been enjoying it. Magic that has been lost for centuries is slowly awakening in the land of Minica. Rulers grapple for power and rebel forces arrive. We have four main players whose journeys we follow. Cleo, a spoiled and pampered princess. Jonas, a peasant whose life is defined by injustices and finds himself joining up with the rebel forces. Lucia, adopted into the royal family at birth and chained to her dark destiny. And finally, Magnus, the Blood Prince, raised in treachery and blood, but yet finds that the heart can be more lethal than the sword. And this is the third book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I felt like this is the book where really things started to come together and that it just got crazy. So much has happened to these characters in their journeys, and we start to see a big character arc and development in a lot of them, especially Magnus and Cleo, but I mean also Lucia and Jonas. Like, they all are just going through so much, and I sped through this book because I needed to know what was going to happen. Like, every time I stopped listening, I'm like, oh, I wish I could listen for longer so I know what happens next. There were so many plot twists and the character arcs went in completely different directions than I thought that they were headed, and it really surprised me and kept it fresh. Even though this is like a traditional medieval magic type YA fantasy, it's not predictable at all. And what's cool to me is that the series is 6 books, so it is a really long YA fantasy series, and it kind of does mimic adult high fantasy but kind of makes it more palatable for YA readers, and I think it's a really good gateway series to get into more high fantasy type series and books. The next book I listened to was The Vanishing by Maureen Johnson, which is a sequel to Truly Devious. The famously wealthy Albert Ellingham believed that learning was a game, and so he opened up his own private institution in the remote mountains of Vermont to foster the brightest minds in whatever they wanted to study. However, in 1936, his wife and child go missing in a still unsolved famous kidnapping case. The only clue, a letter signed Truly Devious. In modern day, Stevie Bell is a true crime aficionado who is surprised to find out that she gets into Ellingham Academy. Her mission once she's there, to solve the Ellingham murders once and for all. Things get crazy though when Truly Devious comes back to play and a student ends up murdered. I gave the first one 5 out of 5 stars and I gave the second one 5 out of 5 stars. These audiobooks are a delight to listen to, and there's this little recurring theme of like a rhyme that's like the mystery, and in this one it was something that was like found in Ellingham's desk, and the riddle was, where do you look for something that's never really there, always on a staircase but never on a stair? And you find out like what that means, and it's just so good. I think it's really interesting to stretch a central mystery over 3 novels because this is going to be a trilogy. I don't think that's something that's normally done with mysteries. Usually mysteries are kind of like one and done in a novel, or like they're only a side part. They'll like wrap up in the first book and then you will have like a different mystery in the second book, or you know, something like Agatha Christie. But to have one central mystery going over 3 books, you really have to keep doing something fresh in each book to keep the reader interested, because otherwise you feel like you're never making any progress. And I think the first book and the second book really do a good job of answering some questions, but in those answers you have 10 million more questions that you just need to read more to find out about. I also really love the way that Maureen Johnson weaves the past and the present mysteries together to kind of drive the plot forward, because as you're finding out more about the past and what happens, there's just so many more questions about the present, and it just keeps you hooked. I was just so engaged with the mystery the whole time, and I can't wait for the third book to finally figure out what the heck is going on. And I have to say, there is really good anxiety rep. The main character Stevie has anxiety, and she also talks about using anxiety medication to help manage her anxiety, which is not something that you always see when a character has anxiety, and I really appreciate it, and I think it's important for YA readers to be exposed to that kind of thing because I am all for destigmatizing medication to manage mental illness. Yeah, I just really adored this book. I thought it was such a fun mystery read, and it's really perfect for anyone that's looking for something that will keep you engaged and keep you guessing the whole time. Next up, I read The Steel Prince by V.E. Schwab, illustrated by Olimperi Angiolini and Steen. Sorry, I messed those up a lot, I think. I feel bad, but I don't know how to pronounce things. Okay, anyway, so this is The Steel Prince, and this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, so we had some like extra little things in the back, like guides on how they drew the characters and whatnot. So this is a prequel comic series that takes place in the A Darker Shade of Magic world. A Darker Shade of Magic is the thing that got me into V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab is my favorite author, and it's so cool that she is taking her and extrapolating it to a comic series. I think it's a really interesting way to cross genres and keep something fresh and new in the world and explore it in a more visual way. So The Steel Prince follows Prince Maxim, aka Rai's father, when he's a young and reckless prince, and he is exiled to an unmanageable coast city by his father. There he must show the strength of the military and get them under control. However, he finds himself swept up into an adventure and into a rivalry with a mysterious new pirate queen. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. I really liked that this series is something that's set in a world that I'm already familiar with and I know that I love, but in a comic book form, because I feel like it's really helping me get into comics, which I do want to start reading more of because I just think that there are just so cool. And it was awesome to see illustrations of this Red London world that I know and love, and we get a better understanding of Maxim, who plays a pretty big role in A Darker Shade of Magic when he was younger. There are going to be more comics, and I'm really excited to read them and add them to my collection just so I can have everything A Darker Shade of Magic and have a better understanding of the world as a whole, and just playing around with these comic series in this world is just so fun. I listened to Daughter of the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller on audio. I love this duology. I talked about Daughter of the Pirate King in my February wrap up, and it's just such a good series. In Daughter of the Pirate King, Alosa is the fearsome daughter raised to be the heir of the king of all pirates. She's sent on a dangerous mission to retrieve a piece of a fabled map by infiltrating her enemy's ship. The only thing in her way, the unexpectedly clever and handsome first mate Raiden, who will do whatever it can to get under her skin. But Alosa has some tricks up her own sleeve and will stop at nothing to get what she wants. In the second book, we are on an even more deadly mission to complete the pieces of the map. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I just love the pirate vibes, and I feel like this is like the female pirate book I have been waiting for. The audiobook was also super fantastic because they do such good pirate accents, and I just think that added to the experience as a whole. There's so many fun pirate adventures, and the pacing is really great. Like, things happen and I just had to keep reading. It's just like the swashbuckling pirate adventure novel of my dreams. The banter between the two love interests, I loved it. Like, if you are a person that loves a witty banter between your love interests, please pick this duology up because the banter was so on point and I love them together. It was so freaking cute, and I just adore Alosa as a character. She's so strong and ruthless, but yet has this emotional vulnerability hidden under the surface that really makes her very relatable as a character. And during the time I was listening to all those audiobooks, I was chipping away at Priori of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. What a book this is. It literally hurts to hold up in my hand because it is gigantic. As you can see, I tabbed the heck out of it because I loved it, and I also drew in it at some points because I was just like so enamored with the world. I drew this page with stars all over, drew another illustration. Oh, I drew this orange blossom, and I just really am getting into drawing in my books, and it is honestly great. This book is everything. Like, it's so good. Priority of the Orange Tree is probably one of the most hyped books of the year so far, and like, it deserves all of the hype because it is so fantastic. A world divided. A queendom without an heir. An ancient enemy awakes. There are 3 women that are central players to the story. A queen that desperately needs to produce an heir. Her lady in waiting, a mage who secretly uses her forbidden powers to protect her queen. And a dragon rider who's forced to make a choice that can set her whole world unraveling. Meanwhile, the divided East and West refuse to cooperate, and forces of chaos are rising from the earth. Okay, so this is a dragon book, as you can tell by the giant dragon on the front and on the back, and these dragons here. And Obviously this book is 5 out of 5 stars. Like, it completely has my heart, and I just think one of the coolest elements about it is the mythology in it. It's this whole system of mythology, and we have this whole land, all these different countries and stuff, and each has their own take on like the story of these mythological figures that they worship in their religion. And it's really interesting to see how the differences in these faiths arise from the differences in how these people interpret these stories based on like their country. So it's a really good exploration of like mythology and how mythology changes over location, and also just the court politics were so intense and so good. I mean, this is a super thorough, super well-researched high fantasy that has, the world building is just unparalleled. Like, every element of the world was so thought out. It was really, really cool. And of course, the writing is lyrical and flowing, and it just like sweeps you up into the world and just makes the world come that much more alive. But at the heart of the story are these 3 women, and I loved all of their characters. They're so nuanced and different from each other, and yet you really feel for them during their journeys. Also, there is a female-female romance in here that is just absolutely incredible. I loved reading about them. I just thought that the romance was so well done, and I'm just so happy that we have this book written by a woman, featuring 3 women, and there's a female-female romance, and a gay man is also one of the other narrators, and it's a self-contained high fantasy, and this is just everything that we need in 2019. What's also really cool about this, because it is its own book, it's not a series, like it is just this one book. The world building, the plot, the beginning, middle, and end all have to take place within one book, and it is executed so well, and it just like brings you on a journey throughout this one cohesive story. And it's really cool to have a high fantasy in a kind of format like this versus like the traditional high fantasy series format. Yeah, I could just go on and on forever about this book, and I just feel like whenever I talk about it, I can't even fully express how much I loved it, because I'm just like a blabbering mess when I think about it. But yes, please check this out if you like high fantasy. Even if you don't, if you like dragons, definitely yes, the dragons are amazing, and it was just an amazing experience to read this book. The next book I picked up on audio is Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. Trisha Levenseller is truly becoming an auto-buy author for me because I've loved all of her books so far. Rasmira is the chosen heir to lead her village. Groomed all her life to be a warrior, her life is turned upside down when her coming-of-age trial is sabotaged. Rasmira is then banished to the wild, where her only mission is to kill a god. And that is the only way that she can return to her village and redeem herself. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was a fantastic listen on audio. It had the same narrator as the Daughter of the Pirate King series, and I just think that narrator did such a good job. It really kept me engaged with the story the whole time. This was the Viking book that I was looking for. I read Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young last year, and while I really liked that book, it wasn't like the action-adventure Viking book that I was looking for, and this one was all action and adventure, and it is like a twist on the Vikings. It's not set in our world, it is kind of set in like this parallel world with interesting creatures and whatnot for the Vikings. And the action scenes were so well written and so well paced, and they really overall always added something to the story. And I felt like the main character Rasmira went on such a journey when she was banished to the wild, and she teamed up with these 2 boys that she found in the wild, and you just learn so much about her character and the struggles that she's been through, and she really learns to be confident in herself and what it means to be a leader, and it was just so good. And the romance in this one, like, would it be a Trisha Levenseller book without a super cute romance? I do not think so, but it was so sweet. And the love interest in this book is definitely different than the love interest in the Daughter of the Pirate King series, like totally different personalities, but yet it still made me squeal and swoon with delight because they were just so sweet together, and I love them together. And just thinking about this book just makes my heart happy. So I pretty much rated everything 5 out of 5 stars that I read this month up to this point. I am a person that tends to rate books higher just because I go off how I feel, and I tend to like just love everything that I read, and that's totally fine. That's my style. But this next book ruined the 5 out of 5 star streak, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. And if you watched the Books with Friends live show that I did with Spencer, Chloe, and Sophie, you know that I have many strong feelings about this book. But if you don't know, I will tell you a little bit about them now, but definitely go check out that live show if you want a full in-depth analysis from all of us about what we thought. The Gilded Wolves takes place in the dark and glittering heart of Paris in the 1800s. Severin Montagne Alvari is a treasure hunter and wealthy hotelier. However, when the mysterious Order of Babel comes knocking on his door, they offer him the truest treasure of all, his real inheritance. Severin must assemble a band of experts to hunt down this ancient artifact in the dark heart of Paris. By the summary, it just sounds like there is so much potential, and to me it did not meet that potential, and I did like the characters. The thing that really ruined the book for me is that the world building and the magic system was a complete mess. To me, I'm totally cool suspending belief in books and going by whatever the rules of the magic system that the author defines, but I just was not clear on what the rules of this magic system were. It was like called, I can't even explain it to you. It was called like forging, but there was like metal forging and mind forging, and it was just unclear like when what was used, and it was like explained by Roshni Chachki as like supposed to be a combination of like magic and science, and it just made no sense to me. And to me, like when I'm sitting there confused about why something occurred, it just like really derailed the story for me, and I couldn't get into it because I just could not understand what was going on. And if I don't know like why these things are happening the way that they're happening, it just doesn't work for me. And then I just also felt like a lot of the events made no sense. Like it was building up to something, and then like nothing would happen, and then something randomly would happen later with no anticipation, and it just set my head spinning because it like just did not make sense within the context of the story. So unfortunately I had to give this one 2 out of 5 stars. I really do not rate books low often, but I just could not get past the messy world building and magic system. It just was not for me. However, next up is another 5 out of 5 star read, and that was Frozen Tides by Morgan Rhodes, which is the 4th book in the Fallen Kingdom series. So you already heard me gush about the Fallen Kingdoms series earlier, so you do not need another summary. But I will say this one just continued to do what the 3rd one did and completely knocked it out of the park. Again, just like so many things happened, like these characters are just going through such development, and like I am just completely enchanted by the whole series, and I can't wait to continue and listen to the last 2 books on audio, and I just like don't know what's gonna happen, how it's gonna all end, and I'm really excited to find out. Last up for this month, I read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, which was a buddy read with my friend Trey, and I loved it. Fae cannot create anything, so they depend on the craft made by humans. This can include anything from baking bread to writing to sewing. Isabel is a human painter who must face trial when she does the unthinkable and paints human sorrow in the Autumn Prince Rook's eyes. Rook spirits Isabel away to his kingdom to stand trial when something goes amiss and they are attacked from every side. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is just such a cute, enchanting, fun, quick read. The writing is so whimsical and lyrical and beautiful, and these fae creatures are probably like the scariest fae that I've ever read about. They are cruel and conniving, and the fact that they feel really no human emotion but have this immortal life and just kind of shows the consequences of living forever and being unfailing was so cool. And the romance between Rook and Isabel, oh my goodness, I loved it so much. They were so cute, and it was really cool to see the development of their feelings for one another. And like this is truly like a romance book set in a fantasy world with these really cruel fae, and it was just amazing, and I had such a great time reading it. Those are my books for March. Even though it's almost May, I just really, for the most part, enjoyed everything that I read in March. And let me know you could let me know what you read in March that you liked, but it's almost May now, so you can just let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books, if you like them or not, any recent books that you read that you gave 5 stars to. I'd love to hear it, and have some fun, read some books, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.